let's talk about hepatitis B serology. So it often comes up on exams, and it is often a point of confusion for students, and they are often confusing. So let's talk about them. So first, we will talk about the various markers of hepatitis B one by one, and the relevant information that we need to know about each one. So first, let's talk about HbsAg. So these are antigens, surface antigens, and these are surface antigens, and so when they are positive, when you detect HbsAg, it means that there is an infection going on. So if it is positive, it's in fact the patient is infected. It's the infection is still going on, so the infection is still present. So now it can be acute infection, or it can be chronic infection. So how do you differentiate between these two? Well, in chronic, it will be greater than 6 months duration. So in chronic, the HbsAg will be detected for greater than 6 months, and this will be less than 6 months. Another interesting point is that HbsAg actually cannot be, even if you don't detect HbsAg, the patient can still be infected. And do you remember when? Like, do you know when? It's during acute infection window period. So during the window period, the HbsAg is not detected. The only marker that is detected at that point is the marker that we're gonna discuss next, and that is actually Hb core antigen, antibody against core antigen, the IgM. So these are the only antibodies that are detected during the window period, part of the acute infection. So let's then second talk about the antibodies against core antigen, IgM. IgM antibodies against core antigen. So these are kind of detected during the window period. During the window period, anti-HbsAg is the only antibody that is detected. Okay, so the reason for that is because during the window period, so if this is, let's say, the window period, the levels of HbsAg, anti-HbsAg is decreased. Okay, the amount of HbsAg is decreasing, while the amount of anti-HbsAg IgM is increasing, and these two kind of cancel each other, and that would result, and so we detect neither. So then the only antibody there detected is anti-HbC. Another point to be aware of here is that during acute infection, which serologic markers do you need during acute infection? You need 2 serologic markers, not just one, not just HbsAg. So you need, number 1, you need during acute infection, to diagnose acute infection. Number 1, you need HbsAg, and number 2, anti-HbC IgM. The reason for this is because when you're suspecting acute infection, and if you only check the HbsAg levels, the antigen, the surface antigen, then it may come back negative, because during the window period, as we talked about, HbsAg is not detected, and then if you don't get anti-HbC IgM, then you will think that the patient is like not infected. But if you get both of these levels, and if this is negative, and this is positive, that it indicates it's an acute infection. So a negativity for HbsAg does not rule out infection, does not rule out acute infection, because during the window period that is actually not detected. So an ideal way to diagnose acute infection is to get both the serum markers, anti-HBC and HbsAg. So then another thing is, so these were IgM. Now if we talk about IgM, anti-HBC, IgG. IgM is during acute infection. So now when these are detected, they actually indicate that the infection is resolved. So infection is resolved. So what is the difference between resolution and vaccination? So it just means that the patient is kind of infected, was infected previously, and now the infection is resolved. So it just detects that the patient was exposed. But during vaccination, the patient is not exposed. The patient is just exposed to the vaccine, which contain antibodies. And these antibodies are anti-HbsAg, anti-HbsAg, IgG antibodies. So these are HbsAb. So that is how you differentiate between resolved infection and immunization. So when these are when HbsAg, when the anti-HbC IgG are detected, it just means that the infection is resolved and the patient was exposed to hepatitis B. So then let's talk about the third marker, and that is Hbe Envelope Antigen. So when this is positive, it simply just means that infectivity. So infectivity there is increased replication going on inside the patient of hepatitis B. So when this is positive, it means that the patient can infect others, and there is actually increased DNA of hepatitis B virus, of Hep B virus, Hep B DNA. So, and when these two are present, are increased DNA of HBV or HbsAg are present for greater than 6 months, that indicates chronic infection. So HbsAg, if you see that, it means just that the patient can infect others. Then let's come down to the final marker, and that is HbsAb. These are antibodies against the surface antigen. So in HbsAb, there can be IgM. IgM will be an acute infection, and IgG, and these are protective. So during immunization, the only factor that is detected is HbsAb. So this is the only factor that will be detected in the immunized patient. So now let's